Okay, so this is a quick video that's going to go over uh, just an introduction to risk and bias. So there really is only just one essential question, and that's how are hazard and risk related, and how do we evaluate risk? Okay, because one of the things we're going to have to take a look at in this course is there are rarely the true win-win situations, and so in most cases there are going to be trade-offs, and so we have to evaluate any potential risk with any potential benefit. And so, how do we do those evaluations? And the first thing we really need to know is what is hazard, what is risk, and then be open enough to taking a look at our own personal biases. Let's start by going ahead and taking a look at risk. So, risk is the probability that a harmful consequence will occur as a result of an action and is a function of hazard and exposure. So, how often are you exposed to it? How dangerous is it? And what's the likelihood that you're going to go ahead and have something bad happen? Risks are everywhere around us. We face them all the time. If we eat too many or not enough fatty foods, if we drive a car, if we ride a bicycle, if we invest our money in the stock market, all of these things exhibit a certain amount of risk. But we need to make sure that we understand the difference between risk and hazard. So, when we start looking at a hazard is something that has the potential to harm you. Not guaranteed to happen, but something that could. Risk is how likely that hazard is going to cause you harm. What is the chance that that risk is going to take place? Okay. So, hazard is something that could hurt you, risk is the chance of it hurting you. And so, whenever we do a risk assessment, we try to reduce any adverse consequences. We constantly are making risk assessments, whether we think about it or not, and we don't always make good ones. So when we make decisions, we don't always make good decisions because we don't always think maybe as critically as we should about the risk assessments that we make. So every time you sit down in a car, for example, before starting the car, you may consider the risks involved in driving and consequently may decide to wear a seatbelt or not. I've known people that have done that too. And in some cases, because people don't always make good decisions, the government has had to step in and provide regulations that help limit the amount of risk. It's required to go ahead and wear a seatbelt. And if you don't and you get pulled over, there is a huge ticket associated with it. Okay? But not all risks are personal risks. In fact, many of the risks that we're going to face as a society um, are bigger than that. And as we talk about environmental science, those are some good examples of that. And they require some amount of government regulation because we aren't directly harmed by it. Maybe indirectly, but we don't always think about those indirect consequences. And so, an example of government regulation would be pesticide use is regulated under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, and air quality is regulated under the Clean Air Act. Okay, these are government regulations to help abate or reduce the amount of risk that occurs to people, animals, the environment, etc. So managing risks at both the personal and societal levels requires careful consideration of the trade-offs. Again, there's that word trade-offs we keep coming back to between the costs and benefits of reducing that risk, as well as the potential for creating new risks. Individuals can judge risks according to their own personal values. And when you think about the worldview that we went over today, values can be defined as the relative worth an individual places on something. What do I get out of it? Is that good enough for the potential risk that it has? Research suggests that mass media are more likely to set the agenda of which risks will be evaluated, whereas interactions with friends and family are more likely to shape what people think about those risks. And more recently, social media is having a key role in that as well. More and more people are getting their information, both factual and non factual, from social media, and it's impacting the way that they're thinking about topics and the way that they're making decisions. Because different people focus on different risk characteristics and have different value sets, their perceptions of a risk may not always be the same. And so, lastly, it's important for us to keep in mind that we have our own internal bias. Bias is our prejudice in favor of or against one thing or person or group compared to another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. All of us do this, and this is something we're always combating in science, is trying to make things as unbiased as possible. But we as humans tend to go ahead and do this. We have ideas of what we think it should be or how it should go, rather than observing what happens and making decisions based on that. And so when we start thinking about this type of risk assessment and our own value systems, our worldview really does shape or frame these types of biases, these type of risk assessments. And so we have to be careful with conflict of interest. And it's been the subject of discussion and concern in many areas of science. With the increased reliance on funding from sources outside of government, there's been renewed interest in the debate over bias, conflict of interest, and science. I mean, have you ever watched those commercials where it says, this is the particular outcome, and then you in the small print down below, or in the little quick voice at the end of the commercial, it says, paid for by the whatever it is. Political ads are notorious for this. It's like, we got to think about who's telling you this information, because statistics can very easily be manipulated to paint a picture or tell a story that you want to. So in science, we make a very concerted effort to try avoiding conflict of interest in order to achieve sound, unbiased results. This is in the vested interest of the scientific community as well as the general public. The less we're reading into the data or trying to put a particular spin on the data, the more reliable it is and the more quickly we're likely to go ahead and get to an accurate outcome. However, creating a system in which scientific decisions are made in an ethical manner, because we do still have beliefs, we do still have values, while free of conflict and individual bias, is challenging. And so that's what I want you to kind of keep in mind today as you're going ahead and making these decisions, as you respond to some of our uh, questions that we have. Your perspective is going to be based on your personal values and your worldview, which is created by your friends and family and experiences, which can change over time. And so, for science to really be valuable and effective, we need to try and strip away as much of that emotion piece to it so that we're looking at just data. And we can look at the trends of what the data is doing and what it's not doing and make as educated a decision as possible with respect to our risk assessment. All right, guys. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.